Hello, everybody. Today, we have Stolen. So he's recently been making a lot of good Rocket League coaching content on YouTube, and it's actually good information, which is refreshing for a change. Instead of some grand champs talking about stuff that they'll get punished for and don't realize it. But yeah, how's it going today, man?
Yeah, good. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm at Fisher College gaming room. So yep, if you hear some background noise, that's why.
Nice. Who's on the team for Fisher now?
Well, now we have Justice, who was here last year as well. But we have two new players, Park and Fuiz. They are pretty good, pretty decent. They made like a couple of top eights in Europe. So yeah, pretty solid team.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess let's just start at the beginning. What introduced you to Rocket League, and then what made you want to become a coach?
Well, the thing is that I discovered Rocket League back in 2016, 17. I used to play Fortnite actually, and a friend of mine just introduced me to Rocket League. I kind of fell in love with it. I was playing like both games at the same time, and when I reached like champion in Rocket League in just like 3 months or so, I realized that maybe I had like something to do with the game, and actually I could try to go a step further. So I started grinding. I bought a PC. Uh, and yeah, that's when I started like my career as a player. I was like a couple times like top one ranked for my country, which is not like the biggest achievement, but still pretty cool. Then I moved to Valorant. Actually, I had a break because I like got sick of this game. I went to Valorant to play pro. I didn't like it, too much, and I realized that what I didn't like is was the amount of hours that you gotta put in whenever you're like trying to pursue a pro career as a player. So I burned out like really easily. So what I did was just, I also got an offer from a Brazilian team to become their coach from a former teammate, and that's where I accepted the offer, tried it, and liked it, fell in love with it, and here I am.
Yeah. So when it comes to Rocket League and like how it's changed over the years, have you noticed like a shift in meta, or do you think it's more mechanics based, or do you think the mechanics have just made the old meta just faster?
Well, it kind of depends. From my perspective, like bases are the same since 2020, when like BTS was dominating with Mark by 8, Monkey Moon, and Extra. That base is still useful to this day, but mechanics made like this meta a bit more complex. Like the triangle positioning, like standard rotation and everything is like a good base, but you gotta add something else if you really want to beat like the top teams. Like you cannot just like do the standard thing and win the whole thing. So there's definitely like new strats, especially for kickoffs. We have seen it like on RLCS. There are even some memes about it,
Hmm.
but I feel that's one of the new shifts. Also, for example, the demo meta. So it's like it didn't like completely changed, but like one thing adds on top of the other, so it makes like a meta more complex, and like different teams can go like into different branches of how they want to play.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've noticed probably about like the same time. Granted, I came in shortly before the whole BDS takeover of the world, so they had already taken over Europe. Uh, but that's when I started to just like really go through all of the like RLCS replays and just kind of catalog like positions and like how they moved into each other. And that's when I realized like there's like some pretty distinct play styles, and it's not just this best case worst case scenario anymore.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. There are like different ways to approach a game depending on the characteristics of the players. That's like the most important thing, in my opinion, to notice as a coach from your team is like their personalities and what kind of player they are. If they are like a player who prefers to play faster or more mechanically, or they like to think more, or they play with the mechanics but slow. For example, Yanks, he's like a really slow player, but his mechanics are insane. So uh, it kind of depends on that, and you gotta try to find a playstyle that suits those players the best, while having some consistency, because those players could be in their greatest day and everything is going to be perfect. But if they don't shine, you still gotta find a way to not mess it up, basically.
Yeah, like you can't just be like, hey, you guys set up this player every game and then he's got a peak or we lose.
Yeah, yeah, because you cannot rely on that. He could be having a bad day, or maybe the other team just counter us, so they just like pre-jump everything for that player. So if you cannot really just rely on like the pure mechanics of a player, you gotta have like a main strat, and also like different ways to implement that strat depending on what team you're facing, and also like how well the players are performing that day.
Yeah, like to me, relating it to Valorant, it's like more and more teams are like developing like a default that they operate out of, and then they're making adaptations. But it's rare that you ever see a team like completely shift just because it's so hard to make that mental switch. It's like, hey, our entire game plan is to get demos and isolate 1v1s. It's
Yeah,
like okay, yeah, you can throw in passing from like those positions and like still follow the same general structure. But you're
yeah,
never going to be like, all right, hey, we're changing our entire game plan to we're just going to keep the ball in their half. Like that's a whole different mental shift, and all your
yeah,
intuition goes away, and you start thinking, and then you start thinking you're a quarter second slow, and then you're gapped by
yeah.
2 car lengths.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, in Val, like in Rocket League, Valorant, every esport, you gotta take take decisions like really quickly. So you cannot like introduce a new game plan because of that. Because players are used to a thing and they naturally decide in that way. So if you wanna like make a shift, you gotta make it on time, like kind of a bigger window of time, not just like during a tournament. You usually want to do it during off seasons. In my opinion, that's like the best time to do it because you have no risk. You can try different things, and if they go wrong, you can still, go back to the old playstyle that was useful. Um, but yeah, you cannot change like in just one tournament.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So, what would you say is the biggest difference between like coaching somebody who's starting out, coaching somebody who has like some basic mechanics? So, like brand new to the game, kind of the diamond champ range, and then GC and up, I would say is its own range. It's just that much more consistency between the two, and then above that is pro. So, like, what would you say is like the biggest difference between teaching like those 4 levels?
well, it kind of depends. I feel that I will like adapt my coaching style depending on what their goals are. So I wouldn't coach, for example, within each category you have like different kind of players. A GC could be like his goal could be just to reach SSL. The other one could be becoming more mechanical. The other one could be he wants to become pro. So you gotta adapt to that. But talking a bit more specifically about each rank, the most basic one, my goal is that they fall in love with the game, and I just try to give things that are not only useful, but they will also enjoy training them, implementing them, and everything. For example, I go for like most basic mechanics like kickoffs, web dashes, half flips, basic positioning, like just principal concepts, and also some like ball control. So I would just like make them spend time in free play, just like trying to drive the ball around. Then like on flat, diamond, it's like a whole different world, but I
Hmm.
basically just teach rotations depending on the kind of player. You have like usually two kinds of players: the one who has decent mechanics but lacks game sense, and then you have like the ones who are like a complete brick. So they just position properly, but they know nothing about mechanics. So depending on how like their strengths and weaknesses, that's how I approach it. And yeah, usually on GC, it's all about decision making. Um, Also like positioning as well, speed. It could be like lots of things. I feel that's when it gets like more customized.
Hmm.
And lastly, the pros. I gotta see basically everything. Not only like the gameplay, but also like the emotions, like the personality, everything outside the game as well is really important because they could be really good, but they need to perform at tournaments, which is like completely different at just performing at a ranked or like scrim or whatever. So you gotta take care of the players' weaknesses and strengths specifically for them.
Yeah, that's definitely like the learning curve I've been on like the past couple of years. So like I started out like it was mainly because of my tactics that I was coaching, and because of that, I kind of it just completely ignored mental, and then from there, I just I finally realized it probably 2 years ago, like how important the mental aspect of it was, just because I kind of come from a place where like mental's kind of the easy thing. And so like it's intuitive to me. Uh, and so that was the hard part for me was transitioning into being like, okay, this is so intuitive to me. How do I make it to them? And I think that's one of the harder things to like transition and that separates out like analyst from coach. And so like that's
Yeah.
been the journey I've been on kind of the past 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, for example, with my current team here at Fisher, I not only coach them inside the game, I'm also there to be their friend. You know, a guy that they can go for uh, counseling is the word. Like someone dies, or
Yeah.
anything. I can always just talk to them, listen to their problems, and just like you know try to handle that, just try to give them comfort. And I also take care of like organizing activities outside the PC so we can be a group of friends as well, because I feel that if you have like confidence outside the game, the chemistry inside the game will be noticeable, because you will have more confidence not only to tell the mistakes to your teammate, which is usually important, and also like the way you tell them, but also I don't know why, but you understand each other more. You know.
Yeah, the building that team relationship is definitely an art in of itself as well. What do you think is the easiest part of coaching?
The easiest part of coaching is the amount of hours you have available for yourself. That's like I don't think if it's like it's an easy thing, but it's like the biggest advantage of it. Uh, you don't have to be grinding 8 hours a day. I mean, there was a period in which I grinded like 12 hours a day as a coach, but that was just when I was like starting and I was like learning a lot about it. But then I realized that I didn't need that many hours if I actually know what to look for. So that's like the easiest thing. Like the best thing about it, you don't spend that many hours as the pro players.
Yeah. Would you say that being a player is a benefit or a like hindrance to becoming a good coach? Or do you think it doesn't really affect? Because I think there's a lot of players that because things are so intuitive to them when they transition into coaching, there's having the knowledge and then there's being able to transfer it. And I think that's where like players don't necessarily like, just like me with like the mentality stuff, like it's so intuitive to me. Like learning to translate something that's intuitive into something that's teachable. Well, what got you on that journey, and how did you grow into that? Like what have you picked up on that?
Well, answering to your first question, if like being a player is like an advantage, I think that it is. Like having some experience like at competitive level. Obviously, the higher you go, the better. For example, Marky Duda or Fairy Peak, you know, two world champions. They are really good coaches, and that's you know probably because how good they were when they were like players, but it's like not 100% necessary. So I don't think that is like a requirement to be a good player. Obviously you need to have like a decent understanding of the game because otherwise you cannot coach anybody. Um, but it's like not necessary. For example, cannot recall the name, but there was like a coach who worked for Barcelona, who is like I don't know, champ one
Mhm.
time three, but he was like really good at just managing their players' emotions and also helping them with strategies and everything. Like his understanding of the game was really good, so he didn't even need to play basically. And what was your like second question? How does it like translate? How can you
Yeah,
get
like
like
how
the
do you?
intuitive things
Yeah,
into? Well, it depends. That's a skill that you develop when you become a coach, and I think that's one of the requirements for being a coach, being able to put your thoughts into words, basically. And also recognizing patterns. That's also a really useful skill for coaches, being able to understand when something repeats and why is that repeats over and over. So at least that's like my focus on it, and that has been really useful for me. So what I try to look for is something that happens over and over and over again. Okay, why this happens? Okay, I don't care that it happened, I care why it happened. Uh and that applies for everything. So we go for from the intuitive to something more, so which is abstract, to something more concrete.
yeah. But when you're making or like coming up with topics for YouTube, like I've seen you cover a lot of like the generic, like basic good stuff that everybody should know. What is like the difference between what you put out in public and like where you are behind the scenes? Like, and I think this is the balance I'm trying to have is like with my own content is how do I give enough behind the scenes and like show the more advanced stuff without being like, here's my playbook so you can counter strat, you know?
Well, I think that there are like, I separate like two stolen as a coach. One is like the pro stolen, which strats I
Hmm.
won't reveal. I don't
Yeah.
even talk about them. And there is like stolen at MetaFi, just selling sessions, and stolen at YouTube, just like teaching the average player, so GCE and below, how do they play, or even like some tips for SSL as well. Um, and there I just give everything, like because the knowledge itself is not what is useful, is how you apply it. So the players will still need me to know how to apply it. So I'm not like you know just uh, going against my own business.
Yeah.
I'm just giving them all the information I have. Obviously, it's also a 10-minute video, so I
Hmm.
won't go into detail about it. So if you have a specific question, you might need a session, to
Yeah.
actually understand it. But to be honest, I just give everything I have. I don't because my goal with my YouTube channel is like educating people, not just like making money and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I do videos because I like it. I always like creating content. Like to make money, I'm here. I have my pro team, I have my sessions, but not the YouTube channel. So I don't care about giving away information.
Yeah. Do you think like we've been really generic with like names of playstyles, and we've been like demo meta and stuff like that for a while. Do you think with the way Rocket League is headed, like we need like a more standardized language? Because like I've had my language for like how to describe teams and like what they do, how they position for a while, but it's very hard to like discuss and like things with other coaches because like we all kind of say the same thing, but we're just using
With
different
different
words.
names.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's because the journey of each coach is like self-taught. So
Oh yeah.
basically, like everybody just learns in their own way, and some of them take things from other coaches, but it's just like the most basic stuff. And from there on, they move into developing their own theories, their own strategies. So I feel that could be useful having a language, like standardized language for certain things, but I feel that it won't be able to keep up with the changes of meta and like the
Mhm.
new things that come up. And also, I think that will develop naturally. Like we can expect to have like the same depth as League, for example, okay, or like the same standardization for words as League, which is an esport that has like at least I don't know when League came out, but
Mhm.
it definitely has more years than Rocket League, and also has way more people, so it evolves at a faster pace as well. Um, so it makes sense that we don't have a standardized language yet. I feel that will develop on its own, will be natural, and also as long as your team understands you, you know how you want them to play. I even like have my own words with my own teams, and like in every team I go to there are like different words because I just adapt to them and I don't try to just like put my words into them. Okay, I just like explain the concept and I ask them, okay, how do you want to name this concept? Okay, for example, for each player, for example with Jovan we have something that it's just like stay chill in defense, which means like a lot of things, but
Mhm.
it's just like still chill in defense. So
Yeah. I think also like when it comes to like discussing Rocket League, like defining who's second and third, because there's a lot of teams that will position like the same, but they'll say this guy's third and this guy's second, and then you talk to another coach that's like at a similar level, like they'll be like, no, like that guy's second, and it'll be like inversed, and so that's where I think like having some sort of like discussion about that,
yeah.
uh, like, and then also like, do you think that the first, second, third idea is starting to get too slow at the highest levels?
Yeah, definitely. But it's still useful to use as a reference.
Yeah.
You know, um, like the first, second, third idea is an ideal scenario.
Mhm.
That's how I see it. So if we will want to get as close to that if possible.
Mhm.
Um, and like about the second, third, I I think that the proper name is like the guy who covers the middle is the second one. The guy who covers the back of the first man is the third one, because he's the most logic one. Like usually, the first man will end up with a play, or will try to get a play to the second man in the middle, not to the guy who is trying, because that means that the first man had the intention to lose the
Mhm.
challenge, which makes kind of no sense, right? So that's why I think that you have like for example here the first man, second man around here, third man around here. So right, what I do is I divide the field in three parts, three
Mhm.
roads, and ball road is first, third, and you have mid road with the second man, and you just play like that. You can also like shift it like
Mhm.
this, so you have like third a bit more advanced and second man more like around midfield, even a bit behind the line of midfield, and that's like what I call the embedded triangle, which was like the strat that Genji used when they just arrived to NA.
Mhm.
That time that they dominated, they usually use that strat because in that way they were just like playing defense from midfield, so any attack
Mhm.
couldn't get past to that line, which is
Yeah.
when they are actually dangerous. So you have many ways to name it, but I feel that that's like the most logical way to think about it.
Yeah. And I think the triangles I think is just like a general concept of like any any game where you're just trying to move something into a net.
Yeah,
Like whether it's hockey or soccer,
soccer. Yeah,
football, like it, even like in basketball, and ironically also defense on in American football is like there's a lot of triangles that defensive setups are based on. Like they're almost just their own section of the play, and like they've got their own rules, and that they just don't care about the other half of the field.
yeah, yeah. And I feel that triangles are like I think that Rocket League is a soccer-based game.
Mhm.
From now on, I will say football, right? Because,
Yeah,
but just so you have an idea, okay? So it comes from football. Especially like Guardiola's playstyle. He was the one who really popularized it like this last years, and I think that it's like a really good way to cover the field more efficiently. Um, because I mean, in Rock League, I feel that this applies because you have first of all 3 players on each team,
yeah,
but secondly because you also have like 3 main areas that you want to be covering or paying attention to. So you want to cover the ball, the middle of the field, like the center of the field, sort of like uh. So let's say the ball was here, so around here. Okay, so if the ball is here, here, and then you have the net. Uh, so your own net. So those are like 3 main aspects that you want to be covering. Obviously, then you have like the back of each of the first and second players and everything. But in general, you have 3 main things. So it kind of makes sense that this triangles theory applies. Uh, I don't know.
yeah. When it comes to like breaking down like habits of players like within and like their understanding of that triangle, how do you get players to like be more adaptive or like understand that not everyone thinks the way you think? Because I think that's where seen this discussion between like a lot of like the rank A level coaches where it's just like, oh, this guy has no clue what he's talking about, or oh, this guy has no clue what he's talking about. And it's because they're like under two different schools of thought, and they don't realize that each of them have merit. And so when some of them do analysis on other teams, they're like, this is what this team is doing, and this is why it's bad. And it's like, and me kind of knowing more about like the different philosophies of the game, like they're missing so much or misrepresenting uh, what a
Yeah,
team's actually trying to do.
well, that's why they are like rank A coaches,
Yep.
right? I mean, one of the most important things about being a coach is having no ego
Yes.
because you gotta be there for your team. So if you have
Mhm.
like a whole huge ego, you won't be there. Sometimes you gotta, even if you think you're right, you could just gotta like shut up, and then when everything is a bit colder, you tell your players what you actually think. But so that also applies to this. Okay, like if they were like actually a bit more calm and they would say, okay, maybe let's let's listen to this. Let's see what you can teach me. And they actually try to understand it. They might come up with, something like with a revelation that they have been watching the game, which is like, how is it called? Like the horse thing that
Yeah, with
horses have, like
blinders
the
on. Yeah, with
yeah,
blinders
with the
on.
blinders on. Yeah. So it's just like that. I feel that's why they are like rank A coaches and not like
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Do you
Um,
think do you think us as coaches like have like an obligation to like help other coaches be able to see those things? Because that's something else that like all the coaching culture in Rocket League, like in general, like there's like a few coaches that will like talk to you about like general things, but there's very few that will be like, well, here's like an entirely different way to think about the game. And I feel like with that, there's not a there's very little mentorship within the coaching community like there is in the player community. Like specifically, like if we look at France, like Kadoff would be helping all the new up and coming French players. Like Zen was playing with him when he was like 12 or something like that. And like there's like a mentorship there. But within the coaching spot, there's really not that culture. And I would say, like, to a certain extent, there's not too much of that, at least in North America. Like, there's a few. They're like, this guy's good, and I'll play some, like, Rank 2's videos with him. But there's very little, like, grow our scene type mentality.
Yeah. Well, uh, one guy that does that is really good, and I definitely recommend watching is Gregan.
Oh, yeah.
His YouTube channel is fantastic. The videos are quite long to see, but you know that's pretty good. But I don't feel that there is an obligation to do that. Mainly because it's like, how can I say this? First of all, like nobody was there teaching us when we were trying to learn, and I don't think there is many people trying to listen to us yet.
Yeah.
To become a coach. So it's kind of the same thing as I mentioned previously with League and Rocket League. That League is more evolved than Rocket League. Well, players are more evolved than coaches. That's definitely a thing. That's why being able to, like keeping up as a coach is so hard because you just gotta do everything by yourself. But yeah, I don't think there is like an obligation. And also I don't think I don't think coaches need like a specific teaching. As long as you understand the basis of the game and you focus on that, that's good to become a decent coach. I mean, maybe not RLCS, but decent coach. And to make the jump, to be honest, it's just getting a good team that listens to you. Making them feel that they are having a great experience and they either will progress if your work is good, and if they don't progress, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's because of you. Like, obviously, it also depends on the players, but that also means that you could have done something better as well. And yeah, like scaling in the coach scene is, I wouldn't say luck, because it's like not only about luck. You gotta be in the right moment at the right time, but you gotta be there, right? But yeah, that's like the main thing about like becoming a coach and becoming a better coach. You learn through experience. I don't think that there are things that could be taught as a thing that, okay, do this will be the result. Okay, maybe in Rocket League, like as a player, you'll see like, okay, if you're a plat and rotate in this way, you will get to diamond. Yeah, there is such a thing as a player, but as a coach, it's just depends. It's like always just depends on your players, your situation, your personality, how you manage. And like, I feel that the most important thing that you can teach a coach is being able to have some time for reflection, or sometimes to analyze, not the game, yourself as a coach. Like being self-sufficient. So that's why I don't think that there isn't. First of all, there is no obligation for us to teach it. And secondly, it's really hard to teach how to become an actual RLCS coach, right?
Yeah, because I think you got to have the game knowledge, you have to have the mental knowledge, or at least like a passing grade in both, and then really good at one. And then on top of that, like there's still like the networking aspect. And that's something that I think to a certain extent gets overblown and just like there's definitely like some like quote unquote friend coaches, but I feel like a lot of them have kind of been filtered out, especially as the scene has gotten more and more competitive.
Yeah.
But I think also you still have to know people and people still have to know you.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta put yourself out there if you wanna become like a successful coach, money wise, right? Or
Yeah.
like, achievements wise, because you will never get a good team if you are not known, and if you don't get a good team, it's really hard that you actually build a project from scratch and just like make it shine. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience. For example, like when I started my career, right after I had like the first Brazilian team, I had another one which was like pretty successful, and from there on, I just stayed with Argentinians, like with 3 Argentinians, and we started like outside top 16, so we were like around top 20, and ended up like in top 5. But that took like a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and it took like some roster changes. Okay, like keeping the same base, but with some roster changes and everything. So that's like the long path. It's also not that safe because
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah.
how volatile is the scene. That's
Yeah.
why I say that it's really hard to teach coaching because all these things are ifs.
Mm-hmm.
If if that happens.
Yeah.
So you have no real control about it.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said for like putting yourself out there. Because there's a lot of people that are just like, I want to be able to do this in the scene. And then I look at like their social presence and like okay, you want to do this, you want to cast, for instance. It's like, okay, like just like pull up random ranked replays and like record yourself casting them.
Yeah,
Pull up RLCS and be like, redub the casting, Like there's things that you can do to show your talent.
yeah,
And then when you
definitely.
do that, like eventually people talk if
Eh,
you actually have the talent. And if you're not getting talked about in any way, then there's a
Yeah,
reason. It's
and I think it's about talent. It's about like how
yeah.
good you are because I don't think myself as a talented coach. Uh,
Mhm.
Maybe just like the social part. I'm a really social guy, but that's kind of it, and it's even not that was not that good when I started.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's all about just trying to be good. Um, so it's not about talent. But yeah, definitely like about the putting yourself out there. There are many opportunities for everybody in the
Mhm.
scene, but it's just that you're not exposing yourself enough so they can find you, right?
Yeah.
For example, I started like my YouTube channel like 3 months ago.
Mhm.
I'm a really small channel. Yeah, like I have 1,600 subscribers, so
Mhm.
it's not
Yeah.
even close to being big. Uh, but I had some collabs. Like I had a collab with Yoda. I'm having this collab with you.
Yeah.
Um, I also got an offer for another coaching side in which I'm getting paid even better than at Metafy. So you know there are like many opportunities, but they all come when you actually start putting your effort into showing everybody else that you're good. I mean, it's not about like proving it; it's just showing.
Yeah.
Just kind of different in my opinion.
Yeah. Because if you have talent, you can just, hey, here's what I do, and people are like,
Yeah,
hey, look, there's talented. It's like if you say you play an instrument, and you're like, yeah, I'm a good guitarist. It's like, well, cool. It's like, where's something that I can hear you play? It's like,
yeah,
like you
yeah,
got to put
definitely.
stuff out there, and then if you're good, like it'll show.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard to get a team as a coach
Mhm.
because there's kind of no way that you can prove them
Yeah.
that you are a good coach without coaching them,
Yeah.
right? Like the only way to show them is like with results from your previous teams. That's why I feel that even though like getting a quote unquote bad team
Mhm.
is like obviously not the greatest idea. Like what I mean with bad team is just like a bunch of like I don't know GC3s. But if they go from GC3 to I don't know 1900 with your help, that's more valuable than if you just make top 16 with a team that is supposed to make top 16,
Yeah.
right? I felt that's where like coaches could focus on to actually show people that they're good. So I
Yeah.
would go with something like that.
Yeah. Like for me, like my first big, I guess, break into like getting into the scene was just taking a single game off a rank A team with some champs in a GC.
Yeah,
And like that's not something that just randomly happens in a weekly tournament. Like and then I think we only lost like the other two games from like two kickoff goals. So like people were just like, okay, like they may have trolled one game, but like how are they keeping it close here? And like was able to show that to some rank B players, and then like we started to have some success and built that up. And then I started putting, some content out, and then people were like, oh hey, like there's some good analysis in this, and
yeah,
it's been up from there. So
yeah. Also, you got like a really good team.
yeah.
Like this split. Um, but yeah, it's really hard. Also, there is a truth in this scene that like if you are not from NA or EU, it's really really hard
Oh yeah.
to become successful. Like I would say that I'm one of the few cases that I made it like outside South America. It's just been like top two teams and me. I would say I was pretty lucky to be here. Um, but yeah, like aside from that, I feel I got here not because of my talent, just because I was able to put myself out there and like show people that okay, and also like keep moving, keep looking for opportunities, like, and
Yeah.
also don't be afraid of just like committing to a thing and that and failing, like
Yeah.
take risk and go for it.
Yeah. Like failing is how you learn, and like if you never lose. It's kind of like if all I did was play against gold players every day, like my weaknesses would not get exposed. So like if you aren't having some sort of failure, then you're not in a place where you're growing. And if you are in a place where you aren't having failure, then at that point you got to start aiming bigger,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
like if that's something you want to do, it's like okay, like now take the next step, you know,
Yeah,
put yourself out there and do something to where you actually could lose, you know.
yeah. That's a huge truth. Like, you should be failing during your process, so otherwise you're not
Yeah,
learning.
yeah,
Like I cannot recall how many times it failed,
yeah,
right? Like how many like also you like people get to understand that most of the times you will fail. That's like the
yeah.
hardest truth because well, that's another skill that a coach has to that a coach needs to have, being resilient to
Hmm.
pretty much anything. Um, like I cannot tell you the times that I'll feel that, bro, this is the last time that I'm doing this.
Hmm.
But it was not, and like eventually I actually succeeded. So I mean, succeeded to my standard, maybe
Yeah,
not for everybody's one. That's also another thing. Just try to be um like always try to improve, but also always be thankful for what you achieved. Okay, no matter what that is, because it's still an achievement, and you should like you shouldn't compare with a world champion, unless you're a world champion as well.
yeah. And I think that's where reflecting isn't just on the bad stuff.
Yeah,
You can realize that you're doing things well, and I think that's something that especially in like those social media like age we live in, where it's always like, oh, you've made $10 million. Well, why haven't you made 100 million yet? It's like,
yeah,
bro, like
yeah.
your
Bro, I
business,
made
like
10.
it's like yo, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
okay,
definitely,
it, it,
definitely. Like it's kind of toxic. Like social media and stuff nowadays is really toxic with like life coaches.
mhm.
saying
Yeah.
things that it's
Yeah.
really really dangerous, especially
Yeah.
for young
Young men.
guys.
Yeah. I think there's, just like on that topic, like there's, I feel like most of those like life coach types, like 90% of what they say is like good and true, that's poisoned by 10% of like a horrible mindset that 90
Yeah,
is filtered through.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Like there are just like a fewer and fewer cases like nowadays, but like I don't know, like 2 3 years ago it was like a lot of like toxicity, so that still remains, and like the ones who learn from them are still out there, so that's like one of the problems. But yeah, I would say that going a bit back to what we were talking about, the failure and also like the achievements and stuff, like to put as a like a visual representation, like your failure should be like every kilometer that you go in a route, and like your achievements should be the fuel to go to that to go through those like miles, and like your goal should be your destination. I mean, I know that it sounds pretty basic, but it is just like that. um you should fuel yourself with the good things that you achieved, and you should like you know every curve that you take, and you find that that was not the right path, you learn from it, so next time that you go through there, you know that you don't gotta turn there.
Yeah. And I think that's just something that's good in life, not just like in coaching. And I think that's
Yeah,
something
of
that
course.
as a like I'm seeing more and more coaches like come in that are a little bit older, that are like actual adults with some sort of life experience,
Yeah,
like I hope that that's something that continues to trend that way, and like we're able to set these boys up like for life and give them
or
life
success.
skills,
Yeah,
not just win rocket leagues.
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
think
You
that's
gotta be.
something local sports like elementary school or like middle school and high school coaches, like the good ones don't necessarily win the state championship, but they earn their players respect, and they teach them a lot, even if it takes them 4 years later to realize it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I feel that it doesn't have to do with age. Obviously, age usually helps with experience,
Mhm.
but what they gotta be is mature, like a mature person.
Yeah.
Um, for example, I started coaching at 18 years old, and I'm 22 now. So I'm kind of young for a coach. But like back when I was like 18 and I was coaching, I was like helping one of my players to do his high school homework, and I told him, okay, if you're not getting this done, you're not playing until you get this done. So
Mhm.
it's like kind of that mentality that you gotta have. Even sort of as a parent, okay, like I had like everybody's like every number from their mothers, so I can call them and I can say, okay, your kid is like not studying, or your kid didn't show up today to training, he's sleeping or whatever.
Mhm.
So you gotta act kind of as a parent for them. Obviously, if you have like a bit more adult players, you don't have to do that as much, but you still gotta help them to, have a balance between the game, their lives, being healthy, everything.
Yeah. And I think that's where something that Jack said was like to become a pro player is like inherently unhealthy, like the amount of time that you have to put in.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so I think that's also like a dilemma that we're in, where it's like to get to where we are, we have to do something that's like extremely risky, to say the least. And like you put a lot of hours into it that, if you just stack it up at a minimum wage job, for the average person, it would have been better for them to have a minimum wage job than to pursue it, at least from a financial perspective. And
Yeah.
so when it comes back to it, do you think that there's there's a certain mindset that you have to have, obviously, to become a coach, especially in Rocket League? But do you think that there needs to be some sort of line for each person where they go, okay, like at this point, if I haven't reached this, maybe I shouldn't consider this as a career? Or do you think that most people should just be like, let this be a hobby, and if you then get a call up to this point, maybe consider pushing further? Like, how do you think players as well as coaches, or really anyone in esports, because it's so volatile, like if you were to give the advice to the average person that is considering this, what would you give it to them?
I would tell them that become a pro in esports is like becoming pro in an sport. You gotta sacrifice lots of things.
Mhm.
Like even like footballers, like any person that wants to get to the elite and they need to get to the elite to actually be paid for will sacrifice lots of things, and they don't even have guarantee that it will make it. Like I have like even friends that were like pretty good prospects to become like pro footballers and then didn't make it, and now they are just working, for a minimum wage. And that's how it is. Uh, but I have others that not only focus on that, but they were also smart enough to actually keep studying, keep pursuing a career, and those maybe didn't succeed at the sport. Some of they did, but the ones that didn't, they still had like a plan B. So what I would say is like try to commit to your goal, as if it was like the only option that you had. Okay, so you cannot fail, but still have a plan B. Okay, so commit to your plans as if it was like your only plan, but still have a backup plan. For example, to be honest, I'm here. My main plan was to become like when I started like uh as with I don't know 17, 18 years old to get into the pro player world. My goal was to be like a social media celebrity, I would say, or like at least like a big YouTuber,
Mhm.
uh, and like then I wanted to become like a coach. I wanted to go to majors and everything, and that was like my main plan. But I still like kept studying just in case, you know. Um, Maybe not at the same pace as I would done if I was not like dedicating so many hours to the game, but at least I was still studying. And that plan B, you know, it's necessary for people. So yeah, I think that people should consider that as well, having like a sort of plan B, uh, if they want to get to pro level, because there are, I mean, you're against the odds, literally, like out of like 100, even I would say like 10,000 people, just one makes it. And if not, just like check the how
Yeah.
many the player base and compare it with the pro player base,
Yeah.
and you will see it's like 0.01 or less, I would
Yeah.
say.
Because we have what, like, I think the highest like we've ever had was like 100 million like accounts, and so like on a
Yeah,
very conservative estimate, let's say 10% of them are alt accounts. Like that's
yeah,
still 90 million people that are playing Rocket League, and I
yeah.
mean
Let's
2,000 of them hit SSL every season, and
yeah,
then out of that, maybe what?
100,
Yeah, like 100 maybe go pro.
150. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, there are not 50 pro teams in the world, right?
yeah,
So made out of 3 players,
yeah,
it's 150 players or less
yeah,
that are pro this in this game.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
only like top 8ish really, it used to be a little more,
yeah,
but like now it's like the top 8 teams maybe like have salaries.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's
True.
like, you know, there's a lot of risk to it, and you have to be willing to accept that risk. That's for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's
definitely.
more you can do to hedge your bets. Uh,
Yeah.
so I guess the last thing to talk about. We've talked about content and stuff like that. Uh, Do you think there's more content that's out there than what people are giving Rocket League credit for? Like with how many people that play the game like on a regular basis, like do you think that there's no content to be made is like an excuse for people to just not do it, or do you think there is like just it's impossible to do, put on the other side of the spectrum?
Oh, uh, I won't lie that it's hard to come up with original ideas for YouTube content. That's definitely a thing that I have to deal with every single week. But if you really try, you can. Okay, because it's like not about the idea itself. It's like you gotta be creative in how you approach it. Um, One of the YouTube channels that inspires me the most is Vsauce. I don't know if you know
Oh
about it.
yeah.
Yeah, so Michael from Vsauce, he just has a way to find like a new um angle to approach like every single concept. He gives his own little twist, and that's what you gotta find and how to do it on your own. For example, I'll teach like I have videos talking about like open nets or like partial rotation, which is like one of the most common concepts. But
Yeah.
I give it my little twist. I have like my good editor that has like really fancy visuals. I always try to be quick and like go straight to the point and teach you actually like the most important things about it. I try to make it entertaining. I try to be always with a smile. So and also the videos that performed the most were the ones that had like the most creativity built into them. For example, the most watched video in my channel is the most cursed element in Rocket League, which is about corners, and I just talk about corners for 10 minutes straight.
Yeah.
In Rocket League, and I name like the ones like on the field, then like the little ramps. How it bounces like ceiling and backward. Also like the corners on the net. So
Yeah.
you just gotta find ways to be creative in that way. Obviously, not all your videos also will be the most creative RPs that you will ever see, but at least if you try to do it in that way, you will most likely come up with a really creative idea. So I won't lie, it's hard, but it's possible. In Rocket League, one of the most original creators, I would say, is Lethamere because he creates his own workshops. That's like really creative, and that's a theme that he's the only one doing it. I think. Um, but another aspect about this is it's also really bad for content creators is that you gotta be creative, but not that much creative because you are putting yourself at risk of not getting views.
Yeah.
Sadly, but true. Like many people just consume like generalized, just like no value content, and that's fine. But that depends on your mission with like your channel. Like for
Yeah.
example, my mission is just teaching people and like creating a coaching community. I don't care about like views. So other people just care about views, or they just like care about entertaining. So it just kind of depends on what your goal is. But you will always find like new ways to approach something, like
Yeah.
in every single field, not just in Rocket League.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. When you mentioned Vsauce, now that like I'm thinking about like how your videos go, I'm like, that makes total sense. Like the style of video he's going for now. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
right.
seeing the influence.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I even copied like some of the things from him, like they're like, hey,
yeah,
something like that, you know.
yeah,
But definitely, like I always like to give it like that nerdy twist without being too nerdy,
yeah,
just like Bezos
yeah.
is, right? He's
The
doing so
nerdy
lot of things.
oddball you love to hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say I'm a cool nerd,
yeah,
and that's my style. That's also my personality. Like I'm a guy who works in esports, has been in his PC his whole life, but also knows how to,
yeah,
social interact. Uh, so yeah, I know that it's been said like a lot of times, but just be yourself when you're creating your videos and like be the best version of yourself. So the most entertaining one or whatever, but just try to be yourself because by being yourself, you're being original. That's the thing. Uh, like not try to copy somebody. Like I just inspire from Bezos, but I'm not copying Bezos. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like that's, like air dribble bumps are like one thing to like be inspired by, but like if that's the only thing you do, like it's like you're never going to be like a good Rocket League player. And it's the same thing with like
Yeah,
content. It's like if you just copy every word that he says, it's like like
yeah,
all you're doing is reading a script, like you're not doing something original.
yeah.
But to
Well,
take those aspects and mix it in with yourself, like that's just growing as a human and learning from
uh,
someone more experienced than you.
yeah, when creating content, you gotta think about like. Oh, here's Jesus, by the way. When you're creating content, you gotta think, okay, why people would prefer to watch me over somebody else.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't necessarily need to be something that you do better, just something that you do differently.
Yeah.
Because you will always find people that like your style over than others.
Yeah. And I think that's the like you can't cater to everyone, or it's like what is it? If you make a movie for everyone, you make a movie for no one. I think is like the
Yeah,
saying, or it's something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's
Nobody
like
identifies with that. Nobody
yeah,
resonates with that. Yeah,
yeah. It's why everybody hates like modern insert style of music. It's like it's
yeah,
the same five people writing it, and it sounds all the same. It's like
yeah,
cool. It's got some like money and marketing behind it, but like nobody's like that is my song. It's
yeah,
usually some smaller band that like you've met personally at like a local concert that they put on or something like that. And
yeah.
like
The one
those
that
are the ones you
resonates you the most. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and also like to come up with something original and good, you gotta fail like 1,000
Yeah.
times. That's the thing. So don't be afraid of like if you're afraid of being ridiculous or doing something that people don't like, just don't do anything because or just like copy the mass and expect like no results.
Yeah.
Um, because if you really want to succeed, you gotta be original, and if you want to be original, as I said, you just gotta do things and fail. Like I failed so many times, and I've been like 3 months into YouTube,
Yeah.
so, and later on you will learn what will fail, so you will have the experience to say, okay, maybe I shouldn't go for this video before doing it. But you never know, though. You never know.
Yeah, like I can't tell like how many like songs in the music industry the band's like, this song sucks, but we need one more to put on the album to fulfill our contract, and that's the one that ends up like going viral, and they're like,
Yeah,
dang it, we hate this song. Now we got to play it at every concert.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely true. Definitely true. So, as I said, just go ahead, try, fail. You know, and even like unless you really know what you're doing and you really studied for it and like you sort of have an idea that your thing will succeed, don't like fully commit into that. Like
Yeah,
just make like instead of like making like just one big quality video, just make like four
yeah,
sort of good quality videos and that will be it.
yeah. And you can learn from each one. It's kind of like
Yeah.
just like when you're starting out, like in Rocket League, it's like the advice that we give everybody that's like below plat is, just play the game more because you still can't hit the ball more than 50% of the time that you try. It's like
Yeah.
you just keep making videos and like eventually you'll be like, okay, I kind of got a flow now. And like,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
then you start to like, but unless you just do it a bunch of times, and that's true like in anything, uh, and trying new things is a lot of fun. Outside of Rocket League, what's like I guess like the top three things that you tried you're probably never gonna do again, but like you tried them, but you're glad you tried them, uh, even though you don't do them anymore.
Um Question. Well, I've tried like many sports.
Hmm.
I cannot name like just one in specific, but I tried like more than 15 different sports, and there are some that I just tried them once and they never like came back to them. But all of them like kind of taught me something. Or, for example, my dad plays golf, and I just went like 3 times with him.
Hmm.
Uh, and like at first I was saying, okay, I think that this will be entertaining, but let's go with it, let's go for it. And I learned how to hit the ball, and even though now I am not seeing like the results or like the good thing about it. I'm guessing that in the future it will be useful for me because when I cannot run anymore, I'll
Mhm.
become like an old man. I'll be able to play golf anyways because I just gotta
Yeah.
walk into the small ball with a bar. So there are many things like that, and like talking about like content creation and everything. Let me actually look into my channel to tell you which videos were the ones that I would say, okay, this one I made it just because I wanted to, and not because uh, I wanted to go with the trend. Um, well, for example, how angles affect your shots. That has only like 2,700 views. I mean, it's
Mhm. Yeah.
still decent, but it's like not crazy. That was a video that I wanted to make because like it's just like so simple, but also so important.
Yeah.
Um, and for example, one. Let me see. Uh, well, be a second faster in Rocket League. That's also a really another video that I really enjoyed making.
Mhm.
The last video about missing open nets, I also really liked creating it. I made like a lot of research into like psychological things, like flow
Mhm.
state, everything like that. It was like really fun to make, and even though it had like a regular performance, like the effort behind it was like huge, but it taught me a lot of things. Like I learned more about like everything that I uh researched for, and also I'm glad that I did it because I just wanted to do it, and I did it, and that's it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like you're creating content doesn't have to be like to become a YouTuber. It's like you can just enjoy doing it. And I think
Yeah,
that's something that's kind of lost. Like even within like the gaming space, it's like, oh, you got to play the game. You got to be the best. You got to be number one. You got to win the world championship. It's like I'm in like that weird spot in like Rocket League where like I'm definitely like more of a casual player, but like I also like enjoy the like tactical depth that the pro side has to it. And
yeah,
so like people are always just like, dude, when are you gonna like hit GC and like do stuff? It's like, and like I just enjoy playing the game like when I have some teammates that rotate around, like it's fun. Like I don't need to like hit this goal. It's like I just want to have fun with the game. And
yeah.
like
That's why I respect freestylers so much. Like I feel that they they're one of the most beautiful parts of this game. Like the freestylers, they have no goals, bro. There's
yeah.
like not even like a way to. I mean, you can monetize your YouTube channel if you are a freestyler, but that's like a thing that you can do with every aspect of the game. But there's like no such a thing as okay, I will earn money just by freestyling, and that's a really good thing because
Yeah.
they
They're the
have like
skateboarders of the Rocket League scene.
yeah, bro, and that's so so cool. Like I I know that they do some
It,
sketchy things as
yeah.
smurfing,
There's
but
there's a couple of them that do, and then there's like a bunch that are just like nah, like
yeah, and also like even for the ones that smurf, like if I was like a gold in a match against one of those guys, I wouldn't quit the game. I would like keep playing even more because I would say, bro, how can you do that? That's so cool. I want to do it too.
yeah. I think there's also like kind of a flip side to it too. Like I think it also just shows like how few people know how to fast aerial, and like the tutorial like is kind of lacking in game. Like
Yeah,
because if you look at a freestyler doing that and you just have like a basic fast aerial, not only do you get the ball, but you get to demo them too.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I can't count how many times like I would just have chat off because I was vibing in just like casual ones, and then like I noticed like probably like 45 seconds in, like after like two or three goals, the dude's just like sitting there, and then like I'm like, oh wait, did this guy ask to like freestyle? And I was like, sorry, I had chat off. And he's like, yeah, I want freestyle. And it's like, cool, like let's try it. And me freestyling is attempting to hit flip resets.
yeah.
It's
How
like,
did I go?
but like yeah, like I feel like there needs to be like almost like a freestyling playlist like, because I think that would be a lot of fun for people, and like
Yeah.
give it a more dedicated space than like hope you queue into somebody in casual ones to like
Yeah.
do it, you know?
Yeah, and also like people, for example, in that don't play the game, I think that they will get into the game more likely if they watch like a freestyler than just like a really try hard player like an SSL with no mechanics. You know,
Yeah.
I myself enjoy more that than just like an SSL that has no shine and just like rushes everything. You know, and that's
Yeah.
it. Um, so yeah, I feel that freestylers should be looked after more by Epic Games. But if we start with that topic,
Yeah.
we'll never end.
Yeah. We'd have a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
like not just a whole nother podcast episode, but literally just a whole nother podcast. But I guess,
Yeah,
you
full
know,
serious.
to wrap this podcast up, like what are like the three things that you wish, like if they suddenly were just like, Stolen, we have discovered your wisdom on YouTube. Tell us what to do with Rocket League. What are the three things we need to do? If that were to somehow happen and Tim Sweeney came to you himself, what was the one thing that you would say for the esport, the one thing you would say for like the competitive side of the game, and then for the casual side of it, like what would the thing be for each of those categories?
Well, first of all, being a coach, please coach slot for to spectate. That,
Yeah.
that that's the first thing. Then for like competitive, like ranked and everything, I would say make ranked a bit more enjoyable. Like that it actually gives you a way, I mean, a real way to really compete because like
Hmm.
tournaments and stuff are kind of dead already, and I don't know how many people play that anymore, but you know, so something more like that, and also like a whole new environment in which you can grow as a player to become a pro player, so such as like Riot has, you know, it's
Yeah.
just copy Epic Games copy Riot. That's it.
Yeah.
And third, for casual players, I think that the best that they can do is just like put online workshops.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like online workshops would add a lot of fun, a lot of content, and a lot of money for
Yeah.
Epic Games. That's like, I think that it's not even hard to do. Like they create game modes every time, so creating a workshop base online. I mean, even Backsmalt did it, which is
Hmm.
like just a small, you know, group of people just working from their houses,
Yeah.
from their homes. You know, just like a online official game of workshops would be awesome for the casual player base.
Yeah. I want to do some ring racing with people and be like, all right, you think you're
Yeah,
fast? It's like, oh, let's do it, you know?
yeah,
Uh,
anything,
yeah.
anything that is kind of different from, you
Yeah.
know, not just like scoring,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, hey, it's definitely been a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to have you back on here sometime. If you guys are watching this on my channel later, definitely go give him a sub on YouTube and a follow. And you know, like there is a gifting option on Metafy if you want to drop him, you know, $10,000 or $20,000 tip. You know, feel free to do that. Uh,
You don't need to. You don't need to.
you don't need to, but you should. So,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
if you want to spend money, just spend it on a session.
yeah,
That will be more useful for you guys.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a pleasure being here. I really appreciate it. It was really nice talking to you. I really enjoyed the podcast. It's been like over an hour, and you know the time
Yeah, it just flew by.
went yeah, it just flew by exactly. So yeah, thank you for having me here. Um, if you're a coach starting out, or like just a player starting out and need any help, you know, just try to come to contact me. You can get into my Discord and you know, tag me in the general chat. I will always, and yeah, because like my goal, as I said, like in the beginning, as a content creator and everything, is just to help the people out. And though I don't have an obligation, as I said earlier, uh, that's like kind of my goal. So you know, I'm down to help anybody that wants to pursue this career, because it's a beautiful career, even though it's a hard one.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having us, or thanks for coming on, and enjoy your time at Fisher.
Thanks, appreciate it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.